cell phones. There's power that was once not there.
So it's really power in our hands.
It's really power
in our potential.
Correct.
And when we come back after the break, we're going to explore the power, but also explore some of the threats that a new power brings. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Free Media, Free Minds. We've been discussing social media and cell phones, potentially the power in your hands to really be the media. David, it's not all rosy though. There are some real challenges and risks.
Right.
Media ownership, the companies that control the handsets and the towers, the signal. Well, what are some of the threats involved?
Well, if you look at Apple, for instance, your iPhone, where basically one company controlling all the software that goes off the Apple Store into your phone. So technology isn't neutral. It's something that's always mediated via what purpose you use the technology for. And one of the big revolutions going on at the moment is open source revolution. For instance, Android operating system opens up all sorts of possibilities because you can home bake your Android system, you can create applications and so on.
So open source is a kind of software. What makes it different from the software that is in this computer?
It's free for starters. It's also based on the Linux kernel, which is a free as in freedom operating system. There are no restrictions as to the use, what purpose you put the operating system to.
It's non-commercial.
Right.
But as I understand it, it's also free for people to edit and to play with and experiment and create new software out of.
Yes, and also to use it for different forms of media. So if you're podcasting, if you're playing MP3s, if you're screening video, you're not dependent upon the capitalist system for your the means of production, as they put it.
So Catherine, you with an organization that does creative and innovative things with cell phones in South Africa today. Give us some idea of what people are doing to turn these into tools that can create greater freedom.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the obvious ones to start with in South Africa is Mixit. It's a really, really popular service, and it allows people to chat with each other at a much cheaper rate than if you were to call each other using voice on your phone. Most people can't afford that, whereas with Mixit you can sit and type and you can chat to each other. And to give an example of how powerful that can be, we've been working with Lifeline to provide HIV counseling via Mixit.
And I've got huge issues with Mixit. I mean, up until recent, I mean, it's just been solved.
Let's first hear the example, and then we'll come to the critique.
Yeah, you know, what we're finding with that service is that kids are getting counseling and asking real questions around HIV, around relationships, around sexual debut. And the counselors can see that sometimes the kids are in their bedroom, sometimes they're at the taxi rank, sometimes they're sitting somewhere at school, you know, and I think that's an immensely powerful application of the technology. Another example of something that we've done, or do you want to go back to Mixit?
Go.
Okay, is that South Africa has been busy revising its national strategic plan for HIV and AIDS. And something that we did recently was try to run public consultation, so public input into that document via mobile phone. And we used a questionnaire via Mixit, we used an SMS comment line, we used the internet, we used a range of different ways to try and get people to tell us what their priorities are for HIV and AIDS in South Africa and that plan. And that was just starting, it's early days, but we're starting to look at ways of getting people to participate in those kind of processes.
As Tolo was saying, if we could vote, we could all participate more fully. But the problems, David, with a company like Mixit?
Well, yes, I mean, it's the same problem that one has with Facebook. If you're Mark Zuckerberg, you're not doing it because you're an altruist or it's an act of philanthropy. There's a statement that you're making about your personal private domain, and so shifting the power from the old, the old newspaper house, for instance, shifting that from that domain to the new tech companies creates all sorts of problems and discrepancies with who controls the technology and who controls the power. So it's a shift of power, basically.
You hear stories about people's Facebook accounts being shut down, their identities being erased, if people complain about them for being anti-Zionist, what have you.
Right.
But at the same time, no one here would deny that there's a great opportunity. We don't have to depend on the big newspapers owned by the big houses.
Right.
Tlola?
I have just come out of a 30-day hunger strike, and the only platform I was able to use to communicate was Facebook, and I'm thinking, had it not been so, I mean, I would have had to depend on the mercy of some journalist who thinks, well, this story, is it worth writing? Is it worth publishing? And so I was able to have the freedom to write my own thoughts and to interact with people all over the world, literally. And so I've experienced firsthand the power of social media and Facebook in this particular case. I post my sermons literally every week, and I get people interacting with me on Facebook.
Across the world.
There are alternatives. I mean, Diaspora, for instance, is an open source alternative to Facebook. Problem with Facebook, it locks you into a certain lifestyle. Okay, yes, it provides you with all these tools. They're wonderful tools that we can use, and activists have been using them to organize. But the question in my mind really is like a question like, did Wahel Goanim, was he the man responsible for the Egyptian revolution, or was it WikiLeaks, for instance? Was it the release of the Palestinian papers that created the Arab Spring, or was it just the toppling of a dictator in Tunisia? So there's all sorts of issues of the credibility of the information that we're receiving via the new social networks, and problem of verification of information. So Gaddafi died today, for instance. Do we actually know that for certain? Is it the BBC that we have to check with, or is it Facebook that we check with?
Yeah. A number of journalistic challenges, because more and more we're relying on Facebook and our cell phone feeds for information that's provided by the citizens,
right,
which has the potential to be amazingly empowering.
Yes.
But of course, journalism is a very specialized skill in some senses, with ethical responsibilities, and it takes time to research and check out facts. Is that a risk of, if we were to become entirely dependent on social media, the opinions and news that comes through our social networks, would we be losing out on something?
It's Aldous Huxley, really. It's the Brave New World. We'd be turning into a self-satisfied, very complacent population, because the problem is if we believe that Facebook provides us, this is the revolution and that's it, and now we've got all the tools and we don't need to progress further than that, then it stops human progress. It stops a whole range of things that we should be doing. Really, the challenge is how to take the new technologies that are coming our way and to preserve the narrative of struggle that we have in our communities, to preserve our traditions, and to take that further into the new decade.
But Tlola, the example you were sharing of your hunger strike, and how that, through Facebook, you were able to expand the impact of that, and I would imagine draw together solidarity. Very much so.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I have people now literally all over the world who have been with me in that journey, and who have, taken some of my, my postings on Facebook and have compiled some of that. There's a compilation that has been put together now that's sort of coming into a book form. by people who have taken interest in that. People I would not have been able to connect with in any other form. So, but I think you're right. I mean, it cannot be, I don't think we have arrived at a place that will not change, but I think we must learn to use whatever is available to us right now to advance our struggles. And then again, ultimately, it's how we use the tools that are available to us. I mean, we can be caught up on Mixit and, you know, dating and all of those kinds of things, or we can ask deeper questions. How does technology, how does social media advance our struggle for justice, our struggle for human dignity? Those are the issues. And where I come from, in the, you know, in a church in the townships of South Africa, though we have a lot of access to cell phones, I'm not convinced that we've been able to accompany access to cell phone with critical thinking and critical usage.
Yeah, right. Here's a good question: would we have had such an interfaith gathering for the Dalai Lama was it a week ago if there wasn't this rapid communication amongst activists? You know, it seems to me.
I mean, I think there's no doubt. I mean, I heard about Tlola many months before I met you, through friends of friends, and then there's no doubt that social media is making us more effective activists. But Catherine, what's your vision for cell phones in a country like South Africa, where there is a large penetration and where it will be the way that people access the internet and social media? What role would you like to see cell phones playing?
Well, I would say that it's going to be hard for people to really be able to use them effectively until many, many more people are able to use a data connection on their phone. Because with SMS is the most expensive way to be sending each other messages, and most people just can't afford it. When we have more and more people actually having a data connection, then I think things can grow from there. And it could well be that would be in a few years' time, and there will be however many more tools, and people will be developing their own tools.
There's nothing stopping us from actually building our own urban Fab 5 wireless networks. You don't have to have a service provider, and you know the whole captive system.
In fact, if you look at the rate that this technology has come, 15 years ago we hadn't heard of email, so it's really exploding.
Yes.
What we can see is that there are challenges, but there's so much potential in the cell phone and in social media, especially if we can produce social media that we own and control outside of the corporations. I want to thank my guests for being with me this evening. The viewers at home, food for thought. The price of SMSs is something we didn't even touch on, because it's not a natural law that you would pay so much for an SMS. It's a law set by the corporations. Something for you to think about. I want to wish you all well and thank the Friedrich Ebert Stichting, CTV, and the Alternative Information Development Center for bringing us this show. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.